Awesome. So I guess we'll hop right into it. So thank you so much for joining us on our journey of
Very
voices.
happy to be here.
Episode 17. We've come a long
So
way.
17.
That's awesome.
So we're very excited. I know we've talked about it for a while, but it's finally that time.
Yeah, man. I'm very happy to be here for sure. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank
course,
you
my man.
for joining
Yeah,
and
man.
accepting the invitation. So
Absolutely.
for those that don't know who Boyce is, give us a little bit about yourself.
I'm just a student right now, full-time student. Bit different to say that. I used to work, now I'm a full-time student, but I'm at St. Mary's doing honors in economics and finance as well. That's right now. I pretty much define myself as a full-time student, but just one step, right?
Mm-hmm. We're going to dig a little deeper into the steps you took beforehand to get
Sure.
you to this point, right?
Okay.
So take us back, man. Where are you from, first and foremost?
So I grew up in rural Labrador, small community, 350 people or so. No cell phone service still.
Oh,
Yeah, still. No pavement, gravel roads. You know, I grew up in quite isolated, but I wouldn't change that for sure. So I was there, graduated high school, joined the military, went and did my training in Quebec, was out in BC for my trades training out in Victoria, got posted out here to Halifax.
Mhm.
This has been home ever since. This is home.
This is home now. Okay, well, I'm glad that you found that point in your life, man. But back in Labrador, being isolated like that, what was it like growing up there? Who were your friends? Did you have any role models?
Yeah, we were tight knit. You know, I graduated high school with the same 8 people I graduated kindergarten with, right?
Mm.
We had one other person join us. So we're tight, right? Tight community, small. Everybody knows everybody. Every vehicle waits everybody type deal, you know. Role models for me again were my parents, my mom especially for sure. I'm a mama's boy.
Oh, my man, me too.
Yeah.
I feel like
This whole
squad, yeah.
Yeah, no, my mom's great, and my Aunt Louise and my Uncle Boyce were big role models too. Hence my name, named after him. Rest in peace. He passed away in 2016. Good man, so he's still the reason why I try so hard now. I can still hear him sing. So that's why I work as hard as I do.
So, and this is what I want to get to the root of is your work ethic and your mindset, right? So you mentioned briefly, and then we know a little bit about your history, you know, that you joined the military early on when you were young, right? So kind of taking us through that progression of Boyce. First of all, what did your uncle and your role models kind of instill in you as a kid? What were your kind of guiding principles, and how did that help you in your mission when you joined the military?
Well, growing up, again, my mom was probably my biggest influencer, right? She was the head of the household. She instilled, I think the main thing, like, you know, she would say you have to work hard, you have to do well, yeah. But the main thing is she really gave me the freedom, and that's probably something growing up in a small community, right? At a young age, I was very independent, out playing with my friends, you know. In a small community, everybody knows everyone. You don't have to be too worried about a lot of things growing up in an urban area. But it was just try it, and you can always do it, right? There was no failure, I guess, right? Mom was just like, if you don't achieve what you want to achieve, it's not necessarily failure, it's just, you know, that's one way of learning, right? So I took that in with me, and I've always just been curious, question thing. I'm a lifelong learner, right? And I want to travel, man. You grow up in a town of 350 people in the middle of nowhere. You want to see the rest of the world. So.
And what did seeing the rest of the world, what perspective did that give you?
I mean, I think one of the things, like, that was the most, like, the biggest realization that I had is that we're all pretty much the same, no matter, like, I've traveled all around the world, right? I've been to 6 out of the 7 continents. Antarctica someday. But people, I think we're all just, we want love, right? We want to provide for our families. We want to have the ability to do something and make a change. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've noticed for sure. And coming from a small town where I didn't see a lot of the world, didn't see a lot of diversity, right? To getting out and just every stereotype that I thought about kind of just disappeared. We're all just human.
Before we get into the travel experiences, because I know I want to hear more about that as well.
For sure.
You mentioned the difference between a smaller community and larger urban communities. Can you talk about some of those differences that you may have noticed?
I come from this small town, like I said, we weighed every vehicle. When I first moved, so I moved to Valcartier, Quebec to do basic training, and then I went out to Victoria, BC, and Victoria's not huge, 400,000 or so, but still, at times, random cars come down the street and I'd be like, nope, I don't need to do that. Just things like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I'm a quick learner. Like one of the things that's strangest, my mom said something like, I live in a bigger apartment building, and I don't know half of my neighbors on my floor, right? And back home, it's like just everybody knows everyone. So it's and everyone for the most part is polite, and I'm not saying they aren't in the city. It's just you don't know people. I have probably a couple dozen close friends, but whereas back home, I had probably 50 or 60 I would consider close friends, right? So I think I have to make better connections with the fewer friends that I have here. Whereas back home, I was just like, oh, I know I'm going to see so-and-so next week. But that's why social media and stuff like that's been good for keeping in contact with my friends back home. Because a lot of them are still back home. And a lot of them went to Memorial University. So I think just those connections, the friends that I had, and I always try and befriend somebody. That's how kind of it was back home, right? If there was somebody new come in, everybody went to them. Who are you? Tell us about yourself, type deal, right? So I still do that from time to time. I find everybody I talk to, everybody knows something that I don't, and I can learn from that, right? So.
Absolutely. Now, what did taking us into your time serving in the military is by no means a quick story. But can you kind of take us where your mind was when you first started out and you started seeing the world and the military for what it was?
Man, I was just a young kid ready to take on the world.
How old are you, sorry?
I'm 29 now.
29? And when you joined, you were?
18.
18?
Yeah.
Okay.
So everything was a new experience for me, right, at that point. And I was just so excited. I'm still excited. I'm always excited for the next thing, right? Like back then I was excited. It was scary, but I still enjoyed it, man. The best thing from that, going from my small town and then going to Quebec to where I didn't know anybody and doing boot camp and stuff like that, and every day was just out of my comfort zone, right? So I think I got not used to it, still not used to it, still even a little bit uncomfortable speaking in front of cameras and stuff, right? But that's where the growing happens, and that's one of the biggest things I think I've taken away from that is just be comfortable, being uncomfortable, as cliche as that sounds, but.
Absolutely. And Dre, I can feel you coming up, man. I can feel you. That's why I'm trying to get all these questions.
I can see too.
You know what I mean? I guess before we switch it up, the question that I have for you, after saying that is, it's almost like a mindset, I guess, that you have to put yourself in when you're uncomfortable. When you step outside your comfort zone. So how did you cultivate that mindset? Is there something that you do? You know, you speak in front of cameras. Do you know, monitor your breathing? How do you calm yourself down, bring yourself to that common ground level?
Like, I would always visualize things going the way I wanted it to go, what that would look like, how it would feel. And I knew that if, you know, a friend of mine like said to me a while back, he was like, it'll all be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end, right? So just preparing myself to know that, listen, I'm not feeling really comfortable right now, but that just means it's not the end, and it will get better. And once you do that repetitive, right, it's a mindset. I guess it just becomes second nature.
You trust it.
Yeah, you have to, for sure. You have to just throw everything out there, you know, take some risks, and it will work out in the end. And so if it doesn't work out right then, you know, it's not the end.
So I mean,
Take it away.
oh my gosh, thank you for welcoming me.
Yeah.
But no, so in that, I mean, you are talking about a mindset, right? You're talking about the growth mindset in a big way.
For sure.
Where you're getting comfortable or more comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's a reality. I mean, stuff is always changing.
Yes.
And as a society or culture as a whole, we're constantly chasing that.
Yeah.
And you know what you're talking about is the other side. We're fighting that constant chase or that constant run with trying to be grounded.
Yes.
And more often than not, we're caught in between. And you've been through a lot of transitions, not just leaving your your community, excuse me, but the military, and then transitioning from post to post, you know, province to province. Every province has a very different feel. Every community has a very different feel. And then coming to St. Mary's, you know, not in the same boat as everyone else in the sense that I was also an older student when I transferred in here. And so you have a very different mindset coming in than everyone else, because your focus is in a different place, your head, your mind is in a different place, you're in a different place.
I'm glad it was that way, though. I feel I'm a much better student at 27 when I went back to school than I would have been at 19, right? So
how have you used those transitions to really fuel your hustle, or you know, your hard work and everything that you throw in yourself? Because you're taking 2 degrees that a lot of people, just when they hear it, will shy away from. And you're very steadfast when you talk about what you're doing, and your commitment to your process, not just education, because it's a step.
Yeah.
And you're very grounded when you say that. Can you just talk about, you know, where that comes from and some of the fire that you have in you from there?
Back when I was younger, one of the things that really drove me was like, if somebody didn't think I could do it, you know, the proving them wrong was probably a big, it was definitely a big thing for me, right? So that transition, like I've made the transition from small community to not knowing anybody and traveling around. That was a bit scary. I've traveled all over the world, some places that, you know, it's not as great as our country, Canada. I was in Afghanistan in 2010, and part of 2011. But the scariest thing for me was going back to university, believe it or not. Not knowing whether, you know, having some doubts, and I've never had doubts. But again, you have to just trust that, you have to believe it. And now, you know, my successes are speaking for themselves. When you get that first one, it just continues to snowball, right? You get that confidence back. But that's not really how it started with me. My first midterm, I failed. So that was hard. And I went home and I was quite upset, and I started to think, did I make the right decision, right? Am I too old to be here? It's been 9 years since I've done any calculus, right? And after the class average for that was like a 46 or something, like half the course dropped it, and I was like, no, this is not happening. And I put everything back into it. I ended up getting a 96 on the final. Still didn't get me the best mark overall, but every mark since that's been like A's and A pluses, right? So it's just I got kicked down a little bit, made me a little bit more humble, and I was like, I'm gonna put everything into it because to look back on it, I didn't put as much into it as I should have, studying and managing my time. So I knew that was on me, right? It wasn't the prof, it wasn't what else is going on in my life. It was I didn't put the time and effort into it. So when I did, and I got the result I wanted, I was like, that's what I expect. And now I just continued to snowball with that. It's like, I did that, I came back from that, gravy.
What would you say the difference between courage and confidence is, just even with test taking or going into certain situations within the military, and are they one of your values, courage or confidence?
Yeah, they're both my values for sure. I would say confidence is having the belief that you can do it, and but courage to me is you're unsure if you can really do it, but you're going to take that attempt anyways, right? And then once you overcome that, that bravery and stuff, then you get the confidence, right? I've done it before, I can do it again, for sure.
Love that. So what are some things that you're passionate about, my man? And how do you take a stand for those things? How do you engage?
I'm passionate about, again, like when people would say, unsure whether or not I could do something, and I'd be like, I can do this, right? So I'm passionate about kind of, it's funny, when I was at a party when I first got into university, and there was some guy, and he was after having a few drinks, and he looked at my hand tattoo, and he's like, "You're in business?" He's like, "How's that hand tattoo?" I'm like, man, if anybody don't want to employ me because I have a hand tattoo, like, I don't want to work for them anyways, right? So, like, crushing those barriers and, like, turning down that, stereotypes maybe, that, this archaic way of thinking that you have to look a certain part to do a certain job, or you have to, play within these archaic rules, right? That's something I'm passionate about, just doing that and being unapologetically me, right?
Love that. I love that. And how do you, you want it? You want it? Hey, tennis.
You ready to go.
All right, well, what I'm going to say is, with that, so how do you take a stand in breaking down those barriers, not only personally within your own life, but for the community in which you're a part of, which is SMU and outside of SMU, whichever communities you're part of? How do you make sure that you're actively breaking down those barriers so others can see that they can do it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I prepare hard and I work hard, and to get the results that I want. So once I achieve what I want, once I break down that barrier, and once I make one big leap forward, my goal is, by doing that, right, it can not only change the way some people think that, okay, sure, you can do really well in school after being out for 9 years, right? You can relearn calculus that you didn't really learn in high school anyways. You can do really well on not just your academics, but your extracurricular activities too, and find that balance. So when I want people to be like, well, he did that, he's got this job coming up, he's got these hand tattoos, but his work ethic and his intelligence is not any lesser because of it. But then the bigger part is I want people to see, who might not have the confidence that I have to do that, to be like, well, it can be done, and it is changing. We're changing, like you said earlier. These stigmas are changing. Like, I think had I been 19 and went to university, it may very well have been different. It would have been different in a sense that I didn't have like experiences I have. I didn't have, I had to drive, but not necessarily for academic excellence. It was for something quite different: travel, meeting new people, trying new things, getting out of my comfort zone. But now it's yeah, I just want people to see that on both sides of the spectrum, from the one who's not really sure if they can do it, that they can, and from the one who would probably judge in the beginning, to be like, I should probably rethink the way I think and why I think this way. Right?
Mm-hmm. And why you think that way? That's key.
And honestly, I mean, it's exciting hearing how grounded you are in that, because that's authentic. You know what I mean? You're talking about being your authentic self and staying true to that. And,
Right.
and I mean, it's a daily battle for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
For some more than others, especially, you know, if you want to talk about stigmas or institutions or kind of the broader cultural themes that we have played.
Mm-hmm.
But as you're talking about it, you know, you're very focused on creating your own authentic narrative.
Yes, absolutely.
And so in talking about that, could you shed a little bit of light on what that looks like for you? Right now you're a student, that's a tool. It's a tool you're using towards a bigger vision, and I know you have it.
Absolutely.
So if you could sprinkle a little bit of light on some of those things, my man.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, I do try to be authentic and be, you know, just who I am. The bigger goals, and I've said this before, like I got this scholarship, Canada's Outstanding CEO of the Year Futures Fund, for like business students. 10 business students from across Canada were chosen. And they flew us to Toronto for the CEO, Canada's Outstanding CEO of the Year award gala.
Wow.
And there was like a bunch of, you know, CEOs from all across Canada, Bombardier, Air Canada, stuff like that. And they had a lady there from the Business News Network, and she asked a question very similar to, like, you know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And again, my answer was that I honestly don't really know. I have goals, right? But I find if I stick true to my values and make decisions based on what I want, right, I'm going to be where I want to be. You know, I have obviously some more specific things, which career-wise and whatnot, and the changes I want to make, but I'm going to continue to work on those first before I give away all my
Provisions.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I've always done that, man, where I make decisions based on what I want, right? I've had obviously plans, and when I veer off of that plan, that's fine. I don't look back and go, oh, I'm losing something here. I need to get back here. I'm like, oh, look, that's another great road to go, and I'm going to do that because I'm enjoying this right now. Right? I thought before I wanted to get out of the military and open up a dive shop. I was a diver in the military, right? And so I went to university for business, but then as I got more into economics and finance, I found that very interesting. I'm like, this is a route I want to explore. So I can still come back to that dive shop for sure, right? But I don't look at that as, okay, that was a goal that I didn't achieve. I'm like, my goals are changing, right? Where I want to be right now is right here. You know, where I'm going to want to be in 5 years is going to be exactly where I am because of those decisions and stuff.
So with that, staying grounded in the process, day to day, moment to moment, minute to minute, in the now, with a lot of noise, more than ever, and every day it grows and it grows, and distractions grow, and whether it's people around you or your environment, in whatever way that looks like, are constantly pulling you in different directions that are not necessarily the directions that you and your true values want to go. What is the way that you anchor down?
I think sometimes I take, you know, I take breaks. For one, I did summer courses, right? I did 15 credits in summer 2016 and 15 credits summer 2017, right? So since September 2015, I've been non-stop school. And that's where I started to get burnt out at the end of the summer, right? And I started to feel that academically and mentally, for sure, right? So I just took a time out, man. Sometimes I take time out and just not do anything, right? Just, if I want to get up and go for a little run, come back and get in the bathtub for an hour, I do that. I just focus on myself, and then if I want to go grocery shopping or any mundane thing, I just do it, and I not, okay, this is time where I should be working on my goals. It's like I've worked very hard, I can take a break, right? So I find that gets me grounded again, but it more so just gives my my head that break that it desperately needs. That sometimes people, I guess, like you and I, are just too stubborn, I guess. We're like, oh, we got to maximize every minute, right? But sometimes you don't, and that helps, I find.
Did you, and from experience as well, coming from a very similar place, like until I stepped away from football, I didn't stop running from the time I came into St. Mary's. And I didn't learn the need for self-care or boundaries or any of those kind of things because I was like, oh, I'm going to just do it.
Yeah.
And I know it's a big thing that can on. I say all the time, sink or swim. So I'll take it on. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter. Oh, I don't know how to do it yet. I'll do it. I'll do it. Even if people are saying, oh, well, you'll have too much on your plate or this. And I'll find out what my balance is when I start to sink.
Yeah.
But I had to step back and I had to step away from something I loved to find self-care in a big way. And so for you, like, what has that process been like? Like in terms of self-care and burning yourself out, and then regrouping. What has that process been in terms of learning to identify and notice? Okay, I'm starting to burn. So I need that time. I need it.
No, I like that analogy, sink or swim, because that's I think that really saw kind of my last year. Academically in my extracurriculars, I was like, I wouldn't say no to anything, right? I'm like, this is a great opportunity. Absolutely, I want to do this. This is a great opportunity, and then I did find, because the year before that I took on more, and I was still doing really well. So I took on even more, right? But then you quickly realize, but you won't find that right until you get there.
Yeah.
Then, I feel like I'm letting people down because I'm saying no to things. I'm like, this is such a great opportunity. But I think most people understand that, right? And that was one of the harder things for me to realize, is that sometimes you have to say no, and that's not, anything bad. You shouldn't feel bad about that. You have to take the time for self-care. You have to, because if you don't, the things that you are saying yes to are going to be negatively impacted. I'd rather do really well on 3 things than mediocre on 10. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. Boyce, I'm ready for story time, man. I'm ready for story time. Tell us about your most resilient moment.
So I was a diver in the military, and I was 21 when I did the dive course, and it's a very intensive physical course, right? It's 6 weeks. You're not allowed to walk anywhere. You run, you swim, you dive, and you do that for 14 hours a day, right? It's hard. We started with 31 people. We lost 10 in the first day, right? So I started that. I was never strong, but always a good runner. My cardio was always good. So I started that out being the fastest runner, but I could barely do 19 push-ups. You know what I mean? So that growth was big for me. I was a fast runner, fast swimmer, but I've always found it difficult to do pull-ups and stuff like that. But after the first 2 weeks, pretty much everybody that's there is going to continue to be there. They've gone through the hardest part, right? You have 4 more weeks. It's still hard, but at that point, your body's adapted. You've got I wouldn't say you're getting comfortable by any means, but you kind of know how it works, right? And you get into that system of thinking, and physically your body adapts. But I got tendonitis on week 4. Be a really bad crunching sound. And I would have to like limp when I was running and stuff, and it almost broke me. I knew that like this could end me, because injuries are just, like, besides mentally people not being able to do it, injuries are definitely the biggest, second biggest reason why people don't finish. But at that point, the doc was like, I'm not going to recommend that you not be able to continue with this. He's like, but I want you to take time to, not push yourself as hard. Which for me, it was like, if I show the people who are who are my bosses here, who are running the program, that I'm not giving it my all, that's never good. Right? It's a teamwork thing. If I can't pull my own weight, then it affects me mentally, and that would that would affect them, right, on how they see me. But they gave me flexibility there. I had 2 days where I had to do everything besides the running, right? And it eventually healed to where I could run, not as well, but at that point I've already proved myself. And I think a lot of them saw that. So mentally that was hard for me, because I thought I was going to have to not finish something that I put a lot of time and effort into. But I had some good bosses, some good people that understood that sometimes things are outside of your control, and that doesn't take away from me as a diver, as a candidate to be a diver, right? So I think that would have been one of my, and the course itself was incredibly difficult.
I'd imagine.
Right? It was one of the most proud moments of my life too, when you finally finish at the end of this, and there's 9 of us finished.
Out of 31.
Out of 31.
Yeah.
Respect, man.
It was good, man. I enjoyed it for sure. Looking back at it, I was like, what am I doing? Right? It's like, I'm getting up at 5 and everything is sore, and and it's cold, and you got to run, and it's like, is this worth it? Yeah. That is.
You're very active on social media, Instagram, in terms of sharing your activity with stocks, right? So, and I think that's good, because it's creating the conversation.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, was there any intent on that, or was that kind of like, well, hey, just kind of speaking to the audience?
Yeah, I have friends that ask. Like, I did not know much about investing or anything, and I truly believe that there should be more about finance and how to do well with your money in high school, right? Like, we don't learn this stuff, or at least I didn't.
No one learns this.
Yeah, and so you get out there, like, you don't realize the huge, I would say, waste by not investing, not saving earlier. Even though, my parents would always say, you save $25 a week or whatever, right? Nobody listens to it, but like what I've learned just in like 2 years of finance, right? It's like, wow, these are key times, especially for myself. I'm older, right? Those first 5-10 years are critical for saving. Not saying that you can't, you just have to invest a lot more, right? But yeah, like I started probably 1.5 years ago, and I've just enjoyed it so much, and like some of my returns have been doing quite well. So I share it with my friends, and they're just always asking questions. So I'm like, if people are asking questions, I'm just gonna post some stuff, and if they have questions, they'll ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I never give advice. It's like, you have to do your research, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And because I would never want to say this is a good investment or that's a good investment, right? You have to do your own research, and that's why I think people should really, young people should really learn more about it, right? Because you got to look forward, man. I say that I go off on, tangents. My goal line doesn't look straight, right? It's like a tree; it branches off, and I know I'm going to get to the end eventually, but you have to prepare for it. I think, if anything, somebody can see that and go, maybe I should start investing, right?
So in that, and there's a little bit of a message there as well. to having to pay attention to trends and stuff like that, and being able to get outside of your comfort zone and take some risk.
Yeah.
Because I think culturally, socially, like risk is a bad thing.
Yeah,
People don't want to take risks.
Yeah.
You don't want to be uncomfortable. It's we champion the opposite.
Yeah.
The easy wins, the quick wins, versus the longer wins. And failure is a dirty word. Like for me, I don't even believe. I don't think you can fail. Like to me, only failing is if you don't do something.
Yeah.
Like if you learn, that's a win. If you learn, or you know what I mean, you're constantly building momentum.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You can fail 400 times. Then all of a sudden you have an invention that is worth $1 billion. Because did you fail, or was it research?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
The mentality that you have to have.
what you're
right?
talking
Like,
about.
back to that risk, I would say I have a higher risk tolerance than most, but that, like my parents and them, God love them, they were looking out for me, right? Like going from the military, which is very comfort, right? Got paid quite well, and it was very secure. And that's what people look for, right? Is that security. But I was like, that's not what I wanted to do anymore, right? It changed, right? As I changed. And so now I wanted to take the risk, and it's like, I'd much rather be at the bottom rung of the ladder that I want to climb than the top of one I don't, right?
That's huge.
So
in that, to bring it back, and if you had one message to give to a younger Boyce, what would that be?
I wouldn't change anything really, but I think what I would say is that sure, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it will be worth it.
Gotta ask one more question, man, before the final one.
No worries.
But you hold a couple positions on campus, correct?
Yes,
So what can you go over some of those for me, and what the mission is
for sure.
those positions?
So I'm Inuit from Labrador, and I'm the co-president of the Indigenous Student Society at St. Mary's University. And St. Mary's has been doing leaps and bounds for their Indigenous students recently, and that's thanks to a lot of other people within the Indigenous community, as well as faculty and staff that have been on board too, and helping get the things that Indigenous students require. So we've done a lot in the last year. We're still doing a lot. We're actually doing the first ever Indigenous night. It'll be in March.
Okay.
So we're working on that.
Yeah, you will be there.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You guys, absolutely. I'll send out formal invitations
Please.
as soon as they're done. But we're looking forward to that, man. Just getting more recognition out there for Indigenous students, right? Because, like I said, I want to break those barriers. I want to change how people see myself. But when Indigenous students see me doing well, I'm hoping that's going to inspire them to do well, right? That'd be my ideal, for sure.
Respect, my man. Okay, and last but not least, you've given us a lot of knowledge today. But what do you hope people can take away from your story here today?
I've struggled again with like my identity, right? So I want anybody that'll watch this or see it, right, to know, maybe you've been thinking that way too. Maybe you've been thinking that I'm not cut out to do this, or I'm not good enough to do this, or it's not people like me who do things like this. To question that, because it's absolutely not true, right? You can do anything you want, as cliche as that sounds, and as long as you try, you'll win that.
So in that faith in the process, that trusting in the process, and being authentic, you're talking about seeing is believing in a big way, and creating that image for other people to see for themselves.
I hope so.
Without giving away too much of the vision and the juice, I won't ask for that. But what's the next step for Boyce?
Graduation. I want to get my family out there. Come to my world. It's hard to go from rural Labrador to here, and it's expensive. So I want to get them out here and do that, that break for a bit, reground myself with my family, and then I'm getting back in the workforce, and from there I have a plan on where I want to be, and without giving out too much specifics, I guess graduation is next, and just some family time, and then some big steps.
We're gonna be following you all the way, my man. Appreciate it,
so.
man. Appreciate it
Thanks
today.
a lot.
Thanks for
Thanks for
having us,
having me.
brother.
Thank you so much for joining us. So
Much appreciated.
before we get you out of here, we're going to get your official sign off.
My name is Boyce, and this is my voice.